Hey guys, welcome back for another video. I am so excited to get started on this video with you guys. I have not made an entire cook a whole Mennonite style meal with me video in over a year, and obviously I do a lot of home cooking and preparation and canning, but I haven't taken the time to film an entire meal and give you guys that big of like an idea or some meal inspiration in that way. So this video has been kind of a long time coming that I wanted to get another one out for you guys. You guys seem to really like the last one. I don't know if the people that watch that one are constant viewers on my channel, but that seems to be one of the most viewed videos, so I'm hoping you guys like this one as much as you did the last one. This one's gonna have some great fall meal ideas or inspiration in it. Even if you don't want to make the entire meal, you can make some of the side dishes. You can make the dessert dish that we're gonna be making, which is so warm and cozy. I'm so excited for it, but I'm not gonna give it away, so you guys are gonna have to keep watching. I'll leave all the recipes and links, everything that I can leave down below in the description box for you guys for this meal. And without much further ado, let's get into it and let's get cooking. So I wanted to take a minute here to thank Fotile for sponsoring this portion of the video. They recently sent me their Chefcubii 4-in-1 oven, and this thing has so many features and has been such a help to me recently with all the cooking and meal preparation that I do here in our kitchen. So a couple cool things about the Chefcubii 4-in-1 countertop oven is that it has a steam bake mode, an air fryer mode, convection mode, convection bake. It also will just warm your food. It dehydrates your food. It combines the heating of convection baking with the moisture of steam cooking to ensure an even cooking and thorough heating of your food. There's 40 preset cooking menus as well as control knobs that allow you to control the temperature and the time, exactly what you need for whatever you are making. This oven has a large see-through window and also a large portable water tank that allows you to put water in it and introduces steam into the oven while it's cooking your food to ensure that it doesn't dry out and you get that nice, yes I know, moist, maybe even food that you want. The door on the Chefcubii oven is 3-layered, and the oven has a 1 cubic foot capacity, which is large enough to even put a casserole size dish in and cook your entire casserole in just a countertop oven without using your large oven in your kitchen. I have already used this oven for so many things. I recently have been trying to minimize our microwave use, whether or not you're someone that uses a microwave or uses it a lot. This is something that you could really use in your kitchen. For us, it's something that I put our lunch in on the daily because we typically eat leftovers. So I will just throw our lunch in my Chefcubii oven about 10 minutes before it needs to be heated, turn on the convection so it's circulating a lot of hot air, and it's also heating from the outside in, not the inside out as with like microwaves and things like that. So it's something I have used so much. I've also used it for baking. We are going to use it today in my cooking. It's going to come in so handy because I have certain things that have to go in the oven at different temperatures. That's not always possible when you have your main dish in the big oven. So this really gives me another option to cook food. I'm super excited to use the dehydrating feature on it this fall with apples. We love dehydrated apples. They're so delicious, and having a dehydrating feature in a countertop oven is really handy as opposed to having to pull out a whole separate dehydrator when it comes to the food you're wanting to dehydrate. I also love the air fryer feature of this. I just did bacon in this 2 nights ago. Nelson came home from work and grabbed some off the pan to eat it really quick, and he asked if I had cooked it in our countertop oven, and he said it made such good bacon. He really liked how it turned out, so I really love the air fryer feature on this as well. It just gives it so many more uses than just like one appliance that works one way. So I'm gonna leave the link for this Chefcubii oven down in the description box and have all the information there for you guys. Don't forget to check it out because I cannot recommend this appliance enough to you. Besides being super functional, it also is super sleek looking, and I really like that. I love an appliance that doesn't look awkward in your kitchen, that is attractive and sleek, at least as sleek as appliances can be, and this one definitely fits the bill for all of those things.
I am going to jump right in and get started with the meal. And tonight for supper, I am making stuffed chicken with mashed potatoes and gravy, as well as acorn squash, and then a sour cream coffee cake for dessert. So it is going to be quite the meal. It is so delicious. These are all things that we love. And believe it or not, I do make this during the week. Like, it's a normal thing that some days I feel like cooking quite a fancy meal, so I'll just do it. So I am making the stuffing or filling from scratch here, and I just had some bread that needed used up, and it maybe wasn't the prettiest, but that does not matter because I'm cubing it all up for stuffing anyways. So I am actually the only one in our family that likes stuffing or filling, so I pretty much make it for myself, but that's okay. When you're the cook, you can totally do whatever you want. So I filled up a small bowl with cubed bread, and then I added in just one egg since it was a smaller amount, and I'm only doing a small chicken and not like a very large sized one. Then I sprinkle in some onion powder and garlic powder and celery seed, and that gives it some good flavor. I don't always have celery on hand, and even if I have an onion on hand, sometimes the seasoning is just easier than adding that all into the stuffing. So this is kind of the shortcut route, but of course you could always add in diced celery, onion, anything like that you want. So after I had that mixed together, I kind of set that aside and started working on our chicken. So like I said, this is a small chicken. I get the young chickens, and it's just enough to feed our family for one meal. I'll probably have to size up in a couple years to bigger chickens or doing two. But anyways, I'm going to season it here with some onion powder and some lemon pepper. This makes a great seasoning, and I just like to rub it in to really make sure it sticks onto the bird and does not just come off when you're baking it. And then on top of that, I'm actually adding a coffee seasoning that I found at Aldi. Super inexpensive. It's the Aldi brand. I think it was only $2 or $3 for this whole large container, but it is a really good flavor, and we really like it on chicken. So I seasoned the bird well and then laid it down in my pan and got ready to put my stuffing in. So I typically add in melted butter, but I completely forgot to do that this time to my stuffing. So I just added in a little bit of regular butter, it'll melt, and then a splash of milk if it needs some more liquid. You don't want your stuffing to be too saturated because obviously with cooking in the chicken, it is going to get soft. So make sure it's not too saturated. I actually had it a little bit softer or a little bit more mushy this time than what I'd like, but you kind of live and learn, and it doesn't ruin it, so don't worry. But I stuffed all the filling that I could fit in this small chicken, and then what I do is I actually take some foil and kind of make a little foil packet with the rest of my filling. I just wrap it twice and make sure that all the seams are facing side up so none of the chicken broth gets in my filling and makes it go to complete mush. So a little thing here that I do instead of like stitching up the end of the bird is just sticking a bread crust over the opening to hold in all my stuffing, and then I'll just take that out and throw it away, obviously before I serve this tonight. But this is something that I learned from my mother-in-law. It's a great way to use up like your bread crust, or you could just use a plain piece of bread. You just put it over the opening, it holds everything in, and you just pitch it when you're done. It's not really much waste because it's one piece. But then I made my stuffing packet. I just pinch the ends tight together. Like I said, you do not want broth getting in there and making your stuffing all soggy. And then I just stick it in the end of my little dish here. It fits perfect with this size of bird, but of course you could bake it in its own separate dish, then you wouldn't have to do the foil packet. But this works well for me to stick it in this roaster as a foil packet. And then I added some water because I do want to make gravy, and so I added a good amount of water to the bottom of my dish, and that will end up being chicken broth that I will use to make gravy at the end.
So as you guys saw, I finished putting the chicken and the stuffing in the oven. That needs about 2 hours at 350, and Nelson actually just texted me and said he's going to be working really late tonight, and he's working close. So what I think we're going to do is I'm going to take the kids to go hang out with him after I get everything prepped for supper. So you guys are still going to see the same whole cook with me. It's just things are going to go on hold until we can eat, which this is often what happens our evenings. Sometimes we eat normal time, 5:30, 6:30, whatever. Sometimes it's like 9. So I kind of have to be flexible with that, which is totally fine. So what I'll do is I will leave the chicken in the oven at 350 till we leave. And then when we leave, everything will probably get turned down to about 200 or 250, actually probably 250. And what I'm gonna do is, so with the chicken and stuffing, we are going to do potatoes, mashed potatoes. I'm also going to do acorn squash, super great fall dish, delicious, and also super easy. And then for dessert, I think that's all. Okay, yes, chicken, stuffing, mashed potatoes, acorn squash. I'm also gonna make gravy with the broth from the chicken, which you guys saw me put the water in the chicken, so that's pretty self-explanatory. I'll show you when I do that later. And then I am going to make sour cream coffee cake for dessert. This coffee cake is so delicious. It is nice and fluffy and soft. It's not like a fruit flavored coffee cake, so it's not very sickening sweet. It's just like kind of basic flavor. It has kind of a cinnamon top to it, so it's really good. That's what we're gonna make for dessert. Simple, delicious, perfect for fall. I'm gonna bake that before we leave. So like I said, you guys are gonna see everything is just gonna be maybe a little bit out of order, or there's gonna be a little pause until we eat, like in between making everything and until we eat.
So I am going to get started on making the coffee cake. This is like such an easy recipe, you guys. Even if you're a beginner in the kitchen, I'm pretty sure you can make it and it will turn out good for you. So I'm going to start by melting my butter, and like I said, I've been getting away from using the microwave or challenging myself to take the time to use an oven or stovetop instead. So I have these nice little glass oven safe dishes, excuse me, and I put my butter in here and then put it in my little countertop oven, which is a great use for this. And so I don't have to heat up my large oven, and then this just melts my butter or softens it a little bit for this recipe. So getting started, I throw everything in my stand mixer, which works great. I'm just creaming together some sugar and butter, and then in a second here I'm going to add in some vanilla, and then we'll move on to the rest of the ingredients. This recipe is super basic, like I said. So the butter, sugar, vanilla, and then 2 eggs. And then it also takes, obviously, flour. That's kind of a given since this is a coffee cake. And it takes sour cream, which gives it such a good, moist, light texture. Once everything is well combined, you do add in a little bit of water here at the end, and don't worry if your batter is pretty runny. This batter is a runny batter, so do not fear. You did not do anything wrong. You're gonna be good. If you have questions with making sure that your coffee cake is done as far as baking because it's a more runny batter, you can just do the toothpick thing like in the middle of your cake and that will tell you. But anyways, this coffee cake gets a layer of cinnamon sugar in the middle, and then on top top. And so what I'm doing here is mixing together my brown sugar, which I do make myself, and then white sugar and cinnamon. This could be something you skip if you want to cut back on the sugar, but I'm not gonna lie, this is a pretty good part of the coffee cake, so you might not want to skip it. But anyways, I'm just gonna combine the brown sugar, and cinnamon in the bowl, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a layer of cake batter on the bottom of a 9x13 pan, and then a layer of cinnamon sugar, another layer of cake batter, and then the top, like kind of crumb crust thing, is the cinnamon sugar mixture as well. Once everything was ready, I had preheated my Chefcubii oven since my large oven had the chicken in it, and stuck my coffee cake in, and it was ready to bake.
Okay, so I thought I'd chat with you guys a little bit while I prep this acorn squash, and can I just say how pretty this is? Like, ugh, I just love how acorn squash look. Anyways, so what I'm gonna do is I am prepping this so when the coffee cake gets out of my little countertop oven, this is gonna go in there for about 50 minutes. I'll put it in at 350, and then the oven will just shut off after it's done baking, and it will just sit in there in the nice warm, keep warm kind of until we're ready to have supper. Okay, so how I cook these, like I said, it's about 50 minutes at 350 or 375. I just put them face down, kind of like a typical squash, I think, in a bowl like this, and then I'll just put maybe like half an inch, quarter of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, of water in the bottom, and just let them cook like that. They get nice and soft.
So obviously this is kind of self-explanatory, or I think it is. I am just going to cut up my potatoes for mashed potatoes. I just peeled them, washed them, then cut them into decent sized chunks, added some water into my kettle, and then I'm actually going to stick this kettle in the oven right along with my chicken so it can soften, especially since we're going to be going away for a little bit to hang out with Nelson at the job. Then these can soften. Obviously, I don't really want to leave them on the stove while I'm gone. So yeah, I'm going to be doing them in the oven. That's going to work just fine. They're going to get done the same way as they would if I was just boiling them to soften them on the stovetop.
birthday cake out, and I'm just gonna be honest, I'm a tiny bit jealous that we don't get to enjoy it right now, but that's fine. It'll have a chance to kind of cool and finish, you know, everything until we get to enjoy it. And then I'm gonna go ahead, and if I can, I'm gonna stick this in. Hopefully I can do this one-handed. I'm gonna go ahead and stick the acorn squash here in the oven, and like I said, since we're gonna be running out, this will just cook and turn off when it's done. I love how casserole dishes fit so perfectly in here. But anyways, so I'm gonna turn up the time to, let's see, probably like 50, we'll do 50 minutes. And then when that's done, that'll just shut off, and then this is done. So then the only thing we're waiting on is the chicken and potatoes that are in the oven.
So if you can see the time on the stove, you can see it is actually 10 till 10. Yes, it's 10 till 10, whatever. But we are getting ready to eat supper, and I'm so excited to have such a warm, nourishing meal after such a busy day. So I was heating my milk on the stove for the mashed potatoes, and I'm sorry guys, I do not have measurements for this. This is kind of a dump and pour thing that I do, and you just taste as you go, and honestly it cannot turn out bad as long as you just add a little bit, taste, add a little bit, taste kind of thing. So I'm gonna hand mash my potatoes first, and then take a hand mixer and mix them together, and then I like to add in a little bit of butter and let that soften. Mix that in to just the potatoes. Once that's well mixed in, and salt of course, then I start to add in my warm milk, and we like more thin potatoes, not quite as thick as maybe other people do, which is completely fine. Like I said, you can add stuff in kind of to your preference, taste it as you go, and determine what you need more of, but you want to make sure that you have your potatoes like well mixed and have your butter added in before you start adding in warm milk. That way you kind of get all the lumps out that you can and don't end up with lumpy potatoes, at least if that's something that you don't care for. So I have to make the gravy yet, and goodness, this is getting to be such a chatty video with explaining kind of how I do everything. Just in case you guys are new or you're a beginner in the kitchen, I want to make sure that I explain it well enough that even you could make a delicious full meal type of recipe or supper like this. So I am going to put these in the oven just to stay warm while I work on the gravy. And how I'm going to do that, it's super simple. I'm not great at making gravies, but I can do this, and so I'm sure you can as well. I'm going to take a little measuring cup and just scoop out the water out of the bottom of my roaster pan. Well, actually, it's not water, now it's chicken broth. Or you could just pour it out, whatever works for you. Put as much as you want in your pot on the stove. I like to get out all I can because I love gravy, so I love having extra around. But anyways, once you fill up however much chicken broth you want in your kettle, I take about 3 tablespoons of flour and mix it just with cold water in like a small cup. You want to just get all the lumps out you can till it kind of becomes like a pancake batter, or a little more watery than a pancake batter. But like I said, get all the lumps out, and then while your broth is heating on the stove, you just pour this into your broth, whisk it in. Don't stop whisking while you're pouring this in, and this will thicken your broth. I know some people like to use cornstarch or other thickeners, and that's completely fine, but this is really simple for me since I always have flour on hand with the baking that I do. And if your gravy happens to get a little more lumpy than you care for, you can always strain it out. You did not ruin your gravy. You can just press it through a strainer and it will be solved. It will still be delicious. So after I add in my thickener, whisk it well to make sure that all like the flour paste dissolves and then it's actually turning into a gravy, I like to add in some salt and pepper and sometimes even some parsley. Obviously, that's personal preference. A lot of things in this meal are personal preference, but that's what I like to add into our gravy. Then once the gravy was done, I just scooped the stuffing out of the tinfoil packet and then also out of the bird and put that in a separate dish as well. This is how I make this entire meal. This is something that Nelson grew up eating and loving, and I have loved learning to make it, and it was fun to share it with you guys. So hopefully this is a fun, warm, nourishing meal you can make for your family this winter. I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe it gave you some meal inspiration even for this fall, especially with the acorn squash. And on a side note, we like to top our acorn squash with a little bit of sugar and butter. It's super delicious and sweet. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here just because we need to get supper on the table. But I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for coming along with me today and making supper with me. I loved sharing it with you guys, and I hope you have a blessed week till I see you next week with a new video.